What's up, everybody? Welcome to Moment of Clarity. How you doing out there? This is a amazing story, wonderful story that I'm covering today because, of course, our mainstream media won't cover it, and we'll get into how exactly they're not covering it in a minute. But first, a little background here. So the U.S. government has wanted to for a while now, create a coup against Cuba. They want to bring down the Cuban government. Obviously, the CIA has now admitted they attempted to assassinate Fidel Castro hundreds of times or something. But so now under Trump, they refired up the old engines of let's destroy Cuba if we can. Great idea. Awesome. They're still butthurt that Cuba threw off their capitalist chains back in the 60s, 50s and 60s, and they're very not happy about that. So they have wanted to do this, and so they're doing kind of the similar thing they're doing to Venezuela. They've put all of these economic sanctions on them, which economic sanctions actually do kill people. People die because they can't get medicines, can't get around, can't get certain types of food, etc. And literally people die from our sanctions. So it really should be called economic war. But that being said, the U.S. did something they do not usually do in that, and I covered this the other week. They pre-reported, they accidentally dropped the date that they were next going to try and create this, what's called a color revolution, which is basically CIA-backed revolutions. They often have a color associated with them. That's where it got the name. But, and I don't mean a race. I mean a color, like the red revolution, green, the purple or pink people have all gotten together. And those are usually CIA tools. But anyway, not always, but anyway. So they did something they don't normally do with the State Department. And again, I covered this the other day. If you want to watch more on that, you can go back and watch the other one. But the State Department released the date that it was going to happen. And it was, yesterday or the day before yesterday? 2 days ago. 2 days ago, they said it was going to happen. So I'm just going to play 1 minute of it. This is them saying that they're supporting the upcoming protest in Cuba. Here we go.
Look, the Cuban people's protests, peaceful protests on and after July 11th, and with the upcoming plans for November 15th, the Cuban people are voicing their concerns about freedom, about democracy, and the failures of that very regime, the Cuban regime, to meet their own needs, the needs of the Cuban people.
Which is hilarious because the needs of the Cuban people are far more met than the needs of the American people, where we don't have free healthcare and they do, and they have no homelessness, and we have hundreds of thousands homeless, and they have guaranteed employment, and here we have millions out of jobs. So he's saying that they have failed to meet the needs of the Cuban people. But that's not what's interesting. That's standard U.S. government propaganda. But what's funny in that is he goes, we are standing with the Cuban people for the upcoming protest November 15th. We are supporting an attempted coup coming up around the bend. Get ready, get your party hat on. We're going to try and create a coup November 15th. So that date happened the day before yesterday. And let's see here. I want to show you Medea Benjamin is down there. She's in Cuba. This is the co-founder of Code Pink. You know, Code Pink is that anti-war group that is at just about every protest in Washington, D.C. Anyway, Medea knows Cuba well. She's been there many times. She lived there for many years. So, you know, Medea knows what the fuck she's talking about. And here she is. So she was down there on November 15th. This big, oh my God, the U.S. is doing it. They're creating a coup in Cuba. Here it comes. And I want to show this one first. This is her. She went down to one of the main places where the protesters were supposed to meet for this, revolution, for this protest, for this U.S.-backed coup attempt. And here is one of the main corners. She says, I went to the corner of 23rd Street and J in Havana, where the big 15N Cuba protest was supposed to be, and I found these two clowns.
¿Sabe qué estamos celebrando? ¿Qué estamos celebrando? Tío, los años de La Habana, que cumplen 94 años. No, 502. ¿Cuánto? Así mismo, está viejito y tiene
This is it, folks.
Igual que tú. ¡Ya, mío, no! Hoy estamos celebrando que justamente 15 de noviembre se reanuda.
There it was. The big coup. That was it. The U.S.-backed coup. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Two clowns showing up to the city square. That's our State Department for you. That's where your $1 trillion, literally, we dump $1 trillion into our military, which includes, all the military-industrial complex and everything else. CIA, NED, USAID. We dump $1 trillion a year into it. That's where your $1 trillion just went, was to put those two clowns out in the middle of Havana to create a massive coup there. And I want to show you a little more. This is Medea again, talking a little more about what she saw in Cuba.
So here we are in Havana, Cuba. In fact, we're in the heart of Havana at a main intersection of 23rd and Jota. It's called La Rampa. And this is actually where the protests were supposed to be, or one location. We've been walking all over Havana today, haven't seen a thing. In addition to a call for people to come out on the streets, there was a call for people at 3 o'clock to get out and start clapping. Didn't see or hear any clapping. There was a call to put white sheets outside their windows. We didn't see a white sheet anywhere. All we saw were lots of Cuban flags and some symbols of the revolution. The sense that we get being here is that whether or not people like their government, they know that these protests are only going to lead to division, to chaos, and what they want is to move ahead. In fact, today was the first day that the schools opened for all of the kids after 20 months of COVID, thanks to their own vaccine and a campaign that has vaccinated children from the age of 2 up so that parents.
So there she is. That's the coup. Clearly going great. And when she says all they've seen is some flags for supporting the revolution, but for Cubans, what they mean by the revolution is the one that kicked America out decades ago, that kicked unfettered, corrupt capitalism out of their country decades ago. They still call that the revolution, which makes sense because you're going up against the American empire, the largest, most powerful country in the world, and one that has crushed God knows how many Latin American countries. So they continue to call it the revolution. Anyway, you can see how well it went. The latest U.S.-backed coup. This is almost as bad as. Do you remember when under Trump they tried to create a coup in Venezuela? It was a couple of American veterans, former, I think, Navy SEALs, helped put together, and they said it was going to be 300. It ultimately was 60 mercenaries that tried to invade Cuba on little motorboats, and they were all caught before they even got to the shore. Some were shot and killed in a gun battle, but that was under Pompeo and Trump. That was a coup attempt against Venezuela. Really well done, just great. And obviously, although these are hysterical, these fucking pathetic attempts by the U.S. government, all told, what the U.S. does to these countries should not be laughed at. This moment should be laughed at, but in general, the U.S. does fucking harm and crush these countries. And when Medea said what the country of Cuba really wants there, most people, even if they have complaints of their government, what most people want is to move forward. And they understand that a lot of their hardship, whether it be whether it be not having certain medicines or not having certain foods or, just income problems, economy problems. They know that a lot of that has to do with the U.S. sanctions, with U.S. economic war being done against them. So they may have complaints of their government. I'd be surprised if any country in the fucking world doesn't have complaints of their government. But those complaints are not so large that they need a revolution that would put need a coup that would put an American government in charge of them, a puppet government that the U.S. flies in there. Do you really think that'd be any better? Cubans right now, like I said before, have health care. They have guaranteed employment. They have no homelessness. They have free college. Like, it's a different type of life. And here's the other thing, and I talk about this in my stand-up routine, is even if you fucking hate the way Cuba does things, even if you're, as an American, if you're also in the United States like I am, or you're anywhere but Cuba. So if you're in any other country, even if you fucking hate socialism and it makes you so angry, what does their life have to do with yours? Let them live their fucking lives. Let them have their own country. Let them do their own thing. Maybe they like socialism. Even if you fucking hate it, what's that got to do with you? Like, and people, you talk to, like, especially right-wingers, although a lot of fucking dumb liberals, which I'm going to play some MSNBC here in a second. A lot of so the right wing in the U.S., also idiot liberals, say, oh, we got to bring down Cuba because of socialism. It's like, they don't have anything to do with your life. That's like saying that you hate genital piercings so much that it ruined your marriage. Just knowing they're out there somewhere ruined your marriage. It's not your life. It's not your country. Fucking stop trying to invade them and coup them and destroy what they have going on. It's really bizarre, but that didn't stop MSNBC. So it's just amazing. This is MSNBC's attempt to do what our State Department is asking for, which is create a coup in Cuba. MSNBC, supposedly our liberal or more left-wing television network, bullshit. Because in the U.S., left-wing or liberal is really just mid-level right-wing. So they did a segment, and I'm guessing they probably planned the segment the day before. They did a segment on this moment, the November 15th protests in Cuba that were rocking Cuba, and they were putting that segment together. And I think as they were putting together on the day on November 15th, 2 days ago, they probably realized there were no protests in Cuba. So they just pretended. First of all, they said that the government stopped all protests, which, as you know, is bullshit. A government can't stop all protests. It's impossible. And then they went on to show the 3 clips that they were able to find. Anyway, I just got to show it to you. This is MSNBC covering the massive protests in Cuba.
The Cuban government used heavy-handed tactics, to say the least, to stifle protests right across the island yesterday. Police vehicles, you can see.
Look, this is their this is their heavy-handed tactics. Is one young lady with the word police on her back. That's it. That's, folks, look at that. Look at those heavy-handed tactics. Holy shit. But it gets worse. He said police vehicles.
See them throughout the island.
There it is. The two meter maids that that MSNBC was able to find. There is your heavy-handed tactics, folks. There are your riot cops. There are your fucking major police presence that has destroyed all protest across Cuba. Oh my God. That is it. Literally, think about this. MSNBC has God knows how many millions of dollars. They have fucking crazy amounts of resources. Then the U.S. government with USAID, NED, fucking CIA has trillions of dollars that they can dump into whatever the fuck they want. Even just billions for coups alone. And this is what they were able to achieve. And this is the footage they were able to get of extreme police crackdown. Was the ass of one young lady in a police jacket and these two little rental cars. This is it. This is it, folks. MSNBC showing you the big Cuban crackdown.
Patrolling the streets, and activists reporting that groups of government supporters blocked protest organizers inside their homes. But there were still acts of dissent, many of them, like this
that's
simple clap by
They
an activist dressed in all white, broadcast to the world.
They found
And
a
there were
woman.
solidarity
They found
protests
one
for the
grainy
freedom of-
video of a woman clapping. This is the extent of what MSNBC was able to discover of the Cuban protests, was this one woman clapping. Notice they're not showing you. Listen, if they had hundreds or thousands of people clapping in their windows, trust me, MSNBC would have shown you that, because they're trying to push for this coup attempt. So they would have shown you everything they got. This is what they got. This lady clapping and the one rental cop that they saw.
Cuba, across the globe, including here in the U.S. and places like Miami.
Across the globe, including places like Miami. So now you can see what coverage they were, what protests they were actually able to get footage of, which is almost entirely in the United States. All right, they have one. Well, they have one from they have from other countries, so it's not entirely in the United States, but the bigger numbers of people are in the United States. Mostly Miami, because guess what? When Cuba had their revolution, the true wealthy, the oligarchs of the society fled, and many of them stayed in Miami. So what do you have? You have the previous oligarchs and their kids of Cuba living in Miami, and they want to bring down Cuba's government. So this is MSNBC showing protests outside of Cuba. Well, who do you think should have more say in Cuba's government? The protests outside of Cuba or the ones within Cuba? I mean, imagine if MSNBC actually showed the number of protests going on around the United States every day. I mean, on light days, you have dozens, but on most days in the U.S., you probably have hundreds of protests, and they're not covering that. Fuck no.
And Las Vegas. Take a look at that. Mexico City, Argentina, Chile. Joining me now is Jason Canela.
So then they go on to find one actor, Cuban-American actor who hates Cuba. So they get him to talk about how bad it is there. But I just want to play this first part again, because this is amazing.
The Cuban government used heavy-handed tactics, to say the least, to stifle protests.
To say the least.
Across the island yesterday. Police
There it is. There it is again. Heavy-handed.
Vehicles. You can see them throughout the
There it is. Police vehicles. Those two rental cars.
Island patrolling the streets, and activists reporting that.
And then they have a short shot of something that looks like military vehicles, but if you look at who's in the back of it, it's not military. So I don't know what the fuck that is or where it's from. And it's also, you can tell the people riding in it are also not like, they're not arrested people. They're not handcuffed. They're not chanting or yelling. So whatever they're showing there is not heavy-handed tactics.
Streets, and activists reporting that groups of government
And they were able to get this video of this railing. Someone's door.
supporters blocked protest organizers inside their homes.
He says they were blocked inside their homes as we watched the person walk out of their home. Literally, he says they're not allowed to leave their homes. And then you see the guy with the phone walk out of his house. What the fuck, man? This is pathetic, even by pathetic MSNBC standards.
But there were still acts of dissent.
But then they found this one lady. This is it. There it is, folks. That is the extent of protest. This is actually the only thing they could pinpoint out of all of this footage This is the only thing you can pinpoint that is definitely actually a protester because they told them to clap or whatever. So this may be the only one that they found because the other one was a woman walking out of her door. We don't really know what she stood for or what she was doing, or he. Before that, it was the heavy-handed police presence of one cop and a couple of cars. And so there's been no video of any protest except for this one singular individual. And that's what, and then MSNBC switches to protests in other countries because they realize they can't actually show anything going on in Cuba. So there you have it. Killer coverage from MSNBC trying desperately to create a coup in Cuba. I mean, these people are pathetic. This is your mainstream media. This is what they are. They are garbage individuals, garbage human beings who have been told probably by their, I mean, you know, maybe that guy was really into this story, but I'm guessing he's been told by his, by the higher ups at MSNBC to cover this. And so he goes to try and cover it, realizes there's nothing, but still pretends there's something because that's their job. Their job is to put forward the lies of our State Department, basically just be stenographers for the powerful. They are not here to help you. They're not here to help the people of Cuba. They're not here to help any regular people on this fucking planet. They are the media elite defending the elite. That is their fucking job. And that is what they do every goddamn day of the week. Now, I want to read a little bit of this Medea Benjamin's article about what's going on in Cuba. It's in Mint Press, great outlet, which you can find at radindymedia.com, an outlet I created with Eleanor Goldfield. So check out radindymedia.com. But yes, Lulu mentions Operation Mockingbird, which is when the CIA, it came out the CIA had been filling our media with CIA people or CIA people who are sympathetic to the CIA, and basically making sure that they could control the voices coming out of your mainstream media. And this was back in the 60s and 70s. However, so when it finally came out, the CIA was like, "Oh, we're so sorry. Why did we do that awful thing? Oh my goodness. We apologize. Here's a Hallmark card. It says, sorry, we infiltrated all of your media. That is our bad. It is a picture of a cat on it. Cute little picture of a cat. Doesn't that do something? We're sorry. We're sorry. Look at that cat. We're sorry." So they did this whole song and dance about it. They were sorry. But going forward, they didn't have to have an Operation Mockingbird any longer, because they own the media. They are the media. Fucking the ruling elite and the CIA, which, what do the CIA do? They essentially defend the ruling elite, except when the ruling elite turns against them and then they kill them like JFK. But in general, they are one and the same. So the media has been captured, most of it, the mainstream media. I mean, in the case of like the Washington Post, it's owned by one oligarch, Jeff Bezos. In the case of some of these other papers, there's a board that owns it or runs it, and that board is the ruling elite. But and then they answer to their biggest advertisers, like New York Times answers to Chevron, who also has a member on their board. So the CIA doesn't need to craft the narrative any longer because they run the narrative. So there doesn't need to be an Operation Mockingbird. So the idea that Operation Mockingbird ended is like, no, it didn't end. It's just no longer needed. MSNBC has CIA contributors all the time. Hey, here he is from the CIA, blah, blah, blah. And then so-and-so from the CIA tells them what to think. And then the MSNBC people go, oh, absolutely. Wow. Oh, my goodness. So glad we had you on. And Fox News does that and CNN does that. But anyway, this is from Mint Press, great outlet, written by Medea Benjamin, co-founder of Code Pink in Cuba. She's in Cuba right now. She says, moving forward, most Cubans seem more concerned with getting their economy fired up than toppling their leaders. Even if they blame their government for mismanagement or corruption or a system that stifles private enterprise, few fail to recognize the enormous impact of U.S. sanctions. While the island has been under some form of sanctions for the past 60 years, the Trump administration added over 200 new measures that dealt serious blows, such as stopping the flow of remittances from Cuban Americans to their families back home and prohibiting U.S. cruise ships from making stops in the island, a business that had flourished under President Obama. Trump's catering to right-wing Cuban Americans was successful in terms of winning Florida and giving the Republicans 2 more South Florida congressional seats, but it made life miserable for the Cuban people. Unfortunately, Biden has continued Trump's hard line, putting partisan politics above the well-being of 11 million people. I'll just read one more paragraph. There's little Cuba can do to alter U.S. policy, but they can and want to make their own internal changes. A theme I heard over and over from young revolutionaries is that the best way to challenge the counter-revolution, so the counter-revolution is what they're calling this bullshit that the U.S. is backing. The best way to challenge the counter-revolution is to make the revolution better. At an in-person gathering of leftist Cubans who, well, getting into the weeds here, but one person wanted to talk about what he doesn't want to change. That included the nation's emphasis on healthcare, science, and education that allowed Cubans to come up with their own vaccine and vaccinate their entire population, even though we did our best to stop them from vaccinating their population because we withheld all needles so that they didn't have enough needles. So basically, we, the U.S., were using the pandemic to try and kill people in Cuba. We were hoping they'd die. Or get seriously ill, so that it would make people miserable. And this is what our sanctions do. This is absolutely what they do. Anyone who tells you, oh no, sanctions just hurt the rich in that country, no, bullshit. Or the leaders in that, bullshit. These sanctions are designed to harm the average people. And guess who gets hurt first? The fucking infants, the infirm, the elderly. So basically, Biden and the rest, with these sanctions, all of his administration, they're fucking sociopaths. They're hoping to cause as much misery and death among the old, the babies, the infirmed in Cuba, that the others get upset and bring down their government. That's what the Biden administration is hoping for. And they know this. They're not idiots. They know how sanctions work. So, you know, if you support that, if you support killing babies and elderly, then I think you should kind of take a long look in the mirror and decide why that is that you've ended up at such a place that you are that phenomenally fucked up, as Joe Biden and his ilk are, and Donald Trump. So anyway, this is good news in the sense that another U.S. coup attempt has fallen ridiculously flat. And let's hope it continues down that path. By the way, if anyone wants to donate, even if you're not watching this live, you can donate on Venmo at Lee Camp. And that all goes to people who are struggling out there, people who need help. Same with the YouTube super chats. All that money goes to people who need help right now. If that is you, you can email Common Censored. That's got an ED at the end at protonmail.com. We try and get a little bit of money to everybody who emails there. Sometimes we run out and we can't do that, but we do our best. Yeah, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, you would like my TV show Redacted Tonight. You'd like my podcast, Government Censored and Government Secrets and Common Censored. I'm going to combine them into one called Government Censored. And you should check out radindiemedia.com. You should make it your homepage or something so you check it every day. It's got all the best left-wing media on the web, independent media. All right. Keep fighting out there, guys. Thanks so much.